Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Arun Singh Thakur from University Institute of Hotel and Tourism Management, Punjab University, Chandigarh. Today, we are going to discuss about the module Adventure Tourism from the paper Special Interest Tourism. After completing this module, students, you will be able to understand the concept of adventure tourism, understand the various types of adventure tourism, then understand the socio-economic and environmental benefits of adventure tourism to the communities, understand the present and future global trends in adventure tourism. So, let us start. Adventurous travel have been an age-old practice for the humans as old as the human history. From the people have been traveling for food, shelter, health, business, leisure and out of curiosity for time immemorial. We have good examples of adventurous travelers like Marco Polo, Captain James Cook and Sir Ernest Shackleton, who had primarily scientific, geographic or colonial motives for travels, but at the core were some of the first adventure travelers. Traveling in those times was quite tough, not like today, where adventure travelers can hire a professional guide who will provide a range of technical support and equipment as well as culture and nature interpretation. The growth and development of modern day adventure tourism industry can trace back to the mid 1800s in America. It was here that adventure lovers started to push the limits of sports like whitewater rafting and mountaineering, with the first ascent of the Matterhorn in 1865 and descent of Colorado River in 1869. Shortly after these two events, two of the great estates were set up that later on provided to be monumental importance for the adventure lovers and the industry at large. These two great estates were the National Geographic Society, formed in 1888 to increase and diffuse the geographic knowledge, and the Explorers Club, formed in 1904 to promote the scientific exploration of land, sea, air and space. The roots of first dedicated adventure travel agency can be traced back to 1920 to a person called Dan Hatch in America. He and his brothers decided to build wooden rafts to explore the River Green situated in today's Dinosaur National Monument. Don Hatch later on formed a company, Hatch River Exploration, which was the first business to receive a national park concessionaire permit for rafting in 1953. Now about the present day adventure tourism. Adventure tourism today has grown into one of the most promising and dynamic sectors of the tourism industry. The governments world over are actively promoting this sector due to its direct benefit to the local communities, the local economies and the environment at large. Business holdings in this sector are primarily small proprietorships, thus promoting entrepreneurship. Adventure tourism is a type of niche tourism activity, generally an outdoor activity involving exploration to remote areas, challenging oneself against the nature and its various elements such as air, water, mountains, climate and weather conditions. Physical and mental fitness is a prerequisite before participating in such activities. Adventure tourism is a form of travel in which the perception and often the reality of heightened risk creates a special appeal to certain segments of travel market. Another definition of adventure tourism is given by the Adventure Travel Trade Association, which defines adventure tourism as a trip that includes at least two of the following three elements, that is the physical activity, natural environment and cultural immersion. While the definition of adventure tourism as per the Adventure Travel Trade Association requires two of these components, trips incorporating all three tend to afford tourists the fullest adventure travel experience and the value. Further, we will discuss the typologies of adventure tourism. Adventure tourism can be classified into various types and typologies. The first is the soft adventure activities. The soft adventure activities, as the name suggests, are the type of adventure tourism activities that require little or no experience and involves little risk, as opposed to the hard tourism, which require the great level of skill and incorporates more of a significant risk in it. Soft adventure activities are toned down versions of their hard adventure equivalents. For examples includes zorbing, boat rides, canoeing, hiking, zip lining, etc. The another type of adventure activity on the basis of its risk is the hard adventure activities. Hard adventure tourism is a term used to describe the type of adventure tourism activities that require high level of skills and training, high level of physical and mental fitness. Participants should participate in such activities under strict supervision of trained guides and equipments because it involves a high amount of risk of life of the participants. Examples include the high altitude trekking, mountaineering, paragliding, skydiving, bungee jumping and deep sea diving. The another criteria of classifying the adventure activities is on the basis of their operations in the area. They are of three types, as land-based adventure activities, water-based adventure activities and the third is the air-based adventure activities. First of all, we will discuss about the land-based adventure activities. The land-based adventure tourism activities are those activities which are done on land, mountains, snow, ice, rock. The trekking, mountaineering, skiing, heli-skiing, rock climbing, mountain biking are some of the examples of this type of adventure tourism activities. We will discuss further. The first is the trekking. The word trek is believed to have been evolved from the Afrikaans word trek, meaning a long, arduous journey typically on foot. Trekking is thus a long, adventurous journey undertaken on foot in remote areas which lacks common means of the transport. Trekking and mountaineering should not be confused and definitely not considered as one. Trekking requires normal levels of fitness, minimal use of sophisticated equipments and low budget levels. The trekking gear generally includes a backpack, pair of trekking boots, coat, water bottle, food that would last you during your entire trek. Dry fruits are preferred for this, sweets and packed food, etc. can also be used. Then first aid kit, flashlight, sunscreen, sunglasses, map and a friend or a local guide. One should never climb alone. The another famous adventure activity is the mountaineering. Mountaineering is very specialized kind of adventure sports. It requires highest levels of fitness, technical skills and training and special equipments as compared to trekking. Mountaineering is done at a higher altitude than trekking. Mountaineers have to encounter a high level of risk and rough weather. A mountaineer should be well trained in using the specialized mountaineering equipments and ropes, and also should be a good rock climber, ice climber and skier also. Then another thrilling activity is skiing. Skiing today, which is considered as an athletic activity, was a prime means of transportation invented by distant ancestors of the modern day Sami, which today forms the part of far northern Sweden, Norway, Finland, the Kola Peninsula of Russia. Skiing is basically a technique of walking over the snow using skiing strapped to one's feet. Skis are tied to skiing boots through a binding. Ski poles or stalks are used to maintain the balance and increasing for speed. Skiing can also be grouped into two categories: Nordic skiing and Alpine skiing. Nordic skiing, this type of skiing is believed to have originated in Scandinavian mountains. What differentiates Nordic skiing from Alpine skiing is that Nordic skiing is basically a combination of a technique of walking, skiing downhill, plains and uphill on the snow. It uses free heel binding that attached at the toes of the skier boots but not at the heels. Type of Nordic skiing include the cross-country skiing, ski jumping and telemark. Alpine skiing is a type of skiing is believed to have originated in European Alps. Fixed heel bindings that attach at both the toe and the heel of the skier boot differentiate alpine ski from Nordic ski. In alpine skiing, the skiers mostly descend down a mountain or a ski slope and thus is commonly called downhill skiing. The popular skiing slopes in India are Kufri, Narkanda, Solang Nala in Himachal Pradesh, Gulmarg, Vardhwan Valley in Ladakh, in the state Jammu and Kashmir, Oli in Uttarakhand. Then the second type of activity is the water-based adventure activities. Water-based adventure tourism is experienced in the rivers, lakes, water reservoirs of dams and seas. The fundamental requirement for all to get involved in those type of sports is that one must know swimming and technical skills, though novice can also learn these sports with beginner courses at National Institute of Water Sports, Goa, Directorate of Mountaineering and Allied Sports, Manali, Water Sports Center, Bilaspur and Regional Water Sports Center, Pongdam in India. The various water-based activities are like whitewater rafting, water skiing, canoeing and kayaking, scuba diving, snorkeling, angling and fishing. We will also discuss few popular water adventure activities. The first is the whitewater rafting. Rafting is believed to have originated from United States. The rafting or whitewater rafting is a challenging recreational outdoor activity where the rafters use a rubbered inflatable boat known as the raft to travel down an fast flowing river. Then comes the kayaking. Kayaking is a thrilling recreational water sports using a kayak to paddle down a fast flowing river. Kayaking ranges from a simple, carefree, gentle moving waters to demanding, dangerous whitewaters. These sports require high amount of training and physical fitness standards as compared to boating or rafting. Then comes the windsurfing. Windsurfing is a flat water adventure sports that combines sailing and surfing. This sports uses wind force to move sailboat, and directional control is done by shifting the sail position and the body weight. Windsurfing requires a lot of training and practice and is generally practiced in the open seas. The third type of adventure activities are the air-based adventure activities. Air-based adventure activities involve jumping off from the great heights that could be from an aircraft, a hot air balloon, or from a high elevation landscape. The various airborne activities include the skydiving, which involves jumping off from a great heights from an aircraft or a hot air balloon, which deploying the parachute initially for some time to get the sense of the thin air or airbrushing of the face. Then parachuting, which is very similar to the free fall, except the diver unfurls the parachute immediately after jumping off. It is much safer than skydiving and hence more open to the common adventures. Then is the hand gliding, which makes the use of the seeming rigid wing like structures called gliders, which helps to glide in the air, and the maneuverability is achieved by shifting the weight to get the direct control. The next is the parasailing, which involves the lifting the person by means of which to few hundred feet and then descending using a parachute. A parasail is a parachute is attached to a four-wheeled vehicle or a motorboat, and when the transportation medium moves, a person starts flying in the air after taking few steps due to the resistance of the parasail on the force of wind. In order to do parasailing, no much training is required. Then comes the bungee jumping. The diver jumps off from the bridge or any landscape offering good elevation of few hundred feet. The diver is tied to a bungee cord, a high elastic nylon fiber cord, to absorb the shock at the end of the jump. This is the most popular adventure sport in the country. Then paragliding. A paraglider is a non-motorized foot launchable wing. The pilot sits in a sitting position strapped to a harness. The pilot can remain airborne for hours if the winds are favorable. Pilot wears a helmet and a reserve parachute for safety and variometer to gauge the ascent or descent of the glider. The paragliders use hot air belts in the atmosphere known as thermals to gain altitudes and to travel long distances. After this topic, we will further discuss the socio-economic and environmental benefits of adventure tourism. Tourism as an industry contributes 9% of the entire world's GDP, and 1 in 11 jobs is created in the tourism sector. Adventure tourism operators are also playing a key role in contributing to a sustainable development of destination through their selection of service providers, vendors, the activities they promote, and the facilities they choose to use. The adventure tour operators can do it by hiring more local talents and try to sell more of the local products to the tourist. This in turn can also prevent the problem of leakages of funds from the local destinations. Then we will discuss how to promote adventure tourism as a key agent of community development. Tourism as an industry is a people-based, socially interactive activity. It has a tremendous potential of employment generation, poverty alleviation, skill development, and developing a sense of pride in the host community. Tourism can transform the lives of the people living in poverty, marginalized by the society, and geographically secluded people. Then United Nations World Tourism Organization, sensing this great potential of tourism, devotes considerable resources to supporting projects that enhance community development through tourism. UNWTO, through its flagship programs as such as the STEP, which is Sustainable Tourism Eliminating Poverty, focuses on building tourism, especially at the local and community levels. One example of successful STEP project involving the community is Nepal's Great Himalayan Trail project, which created a trekking route connecting to lesser known areas, unlocking the tourism potential of these sites and turning them into lucrative economic assets for the poor communities living in these areas. The local population was trained and educated in trekking and adventure tourism, eventually creating an enabling environment for sustainable tourism development. Tourism activities have become more mechanized and commercialized nowadays. Therefore, tourists are now looking for destinations that sell beyond sun, sand, and leisure. Tourists are now seeking for destinations that focus more on experiences and thus delivering greater value to the tourist. This can be achieved by creating authentic connection with the history, culture, and customs of one's destination through engaging the community-based tourism products and services. This in turn helps to solve the great problems of leakages of money, people, and talent, for which many scholars criticize the tourism industry. Now, very briefly, we will discuss a case study also, which is a whale watch, a case study on adventure tourism and indigenous tourism. The Whale Watch is a multiple award-winning nature and adventure tourism company in the New Zealand, owned and operated by the Katikuri people of Kaikoura, a tribe of the South Island. It is the New Zealand's only marine-based whale watching company, offering visitors an up-close encounter with the giant sperm whales at all times of the year. Whale Watch Tour operates daily, and its 95% success rate allows it to guarantee an 80% refund if the tour does not see a whale. Being fully tribal owned and operated, the Whale Watch is an excellent example of tourism, providing a vehicle for the empowerment of an indigenous community. Its tourism business activities have created a socio-economic benefits for both the indigenous and wider Kayakoura community. Whale Watch was formed in 1987 in response to a declining local economy that hugely impacted the Kayakoura's Maori population. Prior to the establishment of Whale Watch, Kayakoura's economy and employment depended largely on farming and fishing industries and on the government organizations such as railways, public works, and the post office. Government restructuring and corporatization of the numerous government departments considerably impacted Maori throughout the country because of the job layoffs. In Kayakoura, the corporatization of the railway department affected Maori families who were widely employed as train drivers, locomotive assistants, and track maintenance crews. Whale Watch possesses an enviable record, transforming from its humble beginnings into a multi-million-dollar business that is tribally owned and operated. The Katikuri people view tourism as a young but growing enterprise, and many see whale watch as the beginning of their participation in the international tourism industry. Adventure tourism market and global trends is the next topic we'll discuss. Let us discuss about the increase in demand for adventure tourism. The year 2012 was a historical year for global tourism. International tourist arrivals crossed the mark of 1 billion in that year. Adventure tourism emerged as one of the fastest growing segments in the whole growth story. In 2010, Adventure Travel Trade Association, the George Washington University, and Zola Consultancy conducted the first market sizing study. The global value of adventure tourism was pegged at $89 million by the study. In 2013, it was found that there was an increase of 195% in 2 years, making this sector $263 million. It was also found that the 42% of the travelers departed for adventure trips. The UNWTO predicts by 2013 arrivals in emerging economies will exceed those in emerging economies, which will further increase to 57% arrivals in emerging economies by 2030. This remarkable growth was attributed to an increase in the international departures, an increase of travelers going on the adventure trips, an increase in the average spending. This provides a sea of opportunities for India, which has unparalleled destinations for exploration and experience from the viewpoint of adventure tourism. India offers soft and hard adventure activities that can be carried out by any traveler. Adventure tourists also follow cultural and environmental aspects of destinations they visit. These can greatly aid economic opportunities of local people in rural and remote communities in India, the best examples of which can be found in Jammu and Kashmir, in Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Sikkim, and other northeastern Indian states. In the end of the module, we'll discuss the point looking towards the future. The United Nations World Tourism Organization predicts that there will be 1.8 billion arrivals globally by 2030. The present developed economies and tourism markets like Europe would be dethroned by the developing economies and tourism markets like China and India in the near future. The major question that remains to be answered is, are these destinations ready for change? As the knowledge of the tourism and adventure tourism options in these destinations is currently limited. Governments at such destinations tend to remain dormant in their approach. The private sector at such destinations also tend to spend less on the quality infrastructure development and quality human resource due to long incubations periods and uncertain features. Destinations need to tailor their approach to match the preferences of the key target markets and ready themselves for the future changes and trends. So the students, now let us summarize what we have discussed in this module. The adventure tourism used to be a relatively fringe or small niche of the overall tourism sector, but today it has become more mainstream as a $263 billion global market. In 2014, tour operators noted that the top 4 trends in the adventure tourism were the softening of the adventure travel, the customization of the trip experiences, multi-generational groups, and the cultural experiences. In other words, the trends indicate that adventure tourism sector is becoming the choice of the travelers. This rapid growth certainly acts as two-edged sword with the threat of unparalleled growth, climate change, environmental degradation habitat loss, language and cultural erosion and leakages looming large. There are many examples of destinations that have grown in an unplanned manner, overcrowded and overexploited, some of which will never fully recover. Adventure tourism projects will have to be commercially viable, socially acceptable, and environmentally sustainable. The adventure tourism sector can serve as an example of how tourism should be planned, implemented, and conducted. The adventure tourism can also be used as a model to create and develop socially and environmentally sustainable, profitable business as it relies on the cultural, natural capital and its primary assets. Thank you.